Oh. Good morning, everybody. It's Jane Johnston with the Bar Hill Group at Remax Camosun and...
Hey, everybody. It's Andrew Plank with Royal LePage. Thank you, Jane.
It's funny because it's backwards. All right, so...
It's like, nope. It looks like you're that way to me, but no, then I have to... No. Why can't you push it around? Doesn't work.
Okay, so Andrew and I have known each other since 2006 when we took our real estate course together, and we decided to do this podcast because we wanted to inform people about what's going on in real estate. So we do this every Monday morning at 10 a.m.
Yep.
You're welcome to subscribe to us.
To be clear, we haven't been doing it since 2006, or it would be much more polished.
Yes, we've been doing this since the fall. Basically, I got sick of talking to myself.
I'll be your foil.
So how's your life in real estate land this past week?
This past week was a busy week. A number of closings for clients, and then with showing properties, mostly condos lately, which is interesting. And I've had some conversations around this. It does look like the condo market is certainly warming up, picking up, a lot more active, multiple offers. Of the three different sets of clients I was out with this weekend, two of the properties went multiple offers. The other set I was out with were looking at new construction, and all of those the two complexes we were looking at were selling really quickly. And while we were there were showings ongoing and meetings with the sales representatives, and much more active than it was last year.
I too believe I was going to say this because we did our statistical analysis last summer about whether or not we perceived the market. We actually perceived it, and then we went and did the data check. So I went to show 22 properties last week, and of those, 3 were available.
Yeah. And
we got an accepted offer, and we got money off on one for our clients. So that was really nice. And then what?
3 properties available out of 22, and you somehow negotiated a price down?
Yeah,
so the property was overpriced to begin with and was sitting on market. What's the story here?
No, it wasn't. But it was a first floor condo, and I just find with those, they tend to they have a very specific market. So generally, women don't tend to buy those. And he loved it, the buyer. We looked at one condo, and it had silverfish in it in the sink. I was like, I'm not touching anything.
Was it an older condo? How old was this condo? Construction?
It was the 1970s. So it's actually rebuilt in the 90s.
Okay.
Or actually in 2000, but the original condo, there's 2 buildings. One was built in the 70s, and then when they rebuilt it, they built the exact same style condo, but it's 30 years newer because it had a fire.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So yeah, really exciting. And then Sunday, I was involved in 2 offers, one of which actually I wasn't even involved. We went to show a house, and we're at the stage where we're one-offing it. So we're going to see one house at a time. And by the time I called the agent in the evening, he had an accepted offer and a backup offer.
Yep.
So... and then the other place, this was a property in Souk. They had 5 offers, and it's going over. It'll probably go $75,000 over asking, so 10% over.
On a property in Souk. So you're finding Souk is still like quite active then out that way?
Yeah, so it's interesting. A lot of people used to move to Souk. So like, I don't know if this is your perception, but Victoria was busy when we first got in 2006, and then Souk was busy, and Langford was kind of like languishing, right?
It's about the price differential usually. Yeah, so Souk was just so much more better value than Victoria or Langford, and Langford wouldn't have been that much different than Victoria at one point.
So now we're seeing Souk houses catching up to Langford values.
Yeah. Although it's interesting being out in Langford yesterday or this weekend and seeing, again, the perception if you're working in the downtown core or in the Victoria core. When I say core, I'm thinking, Saanich and City of Victoria and Esquimalt and Oak Bay in that core. And then you go out to Langford, the prices do seem so much lower for everything. There is still quite a big price differential. And then you jump out to Souk, and yet again, once again, it's just such a big difference even from Langford. So
there's some really nice homes with views in Souk now, though.
Yeah, and it's reached the point that I think Souk is now, in the next while, will become a center of its own, and that's always been the challenge with Souk, is that it's been a commuter or recreational area. So, yeah.
I used to teach out there, and let's just say in 20 years, it's changed.
Right. Yeah. So is everything. That's the thing. They say you can never go back, but everything changes.
So what's interesting politically is just there's a realtor who's newer to Victoria, and she wrote a question the other day, like, why do we have 13 municipalities here?
Yeah.
And fair enough. I think we're going to be amalgamating at some point, but Souk itself, I think, needs healthcare out there. That's one thing that it's missing in some industry.
Fair enough.
Just a thought. Okay, so let's go over what's going on with the stats.
Let's look.
Woohoo! Can you see it?
I can see that. I have an eye appointment later today.
Okay, so the year to date, so it's Monday, January 25th, and we have 447 sales this year compared to 411 last year in January.
And again, that January the 2nd, 2020 stat is for the entire month, whereas we're dealing with the current stats in the first column. So we're definitely well ahead.
10%.
Yeah. And yet, when we look at new listings, doesn't look like we're going to reach that milestone of 901 by the end of the month. So we're still low on listings, and people are hesitant to list. Why do you think that is, Jane?
Well, like begets like. I've been talking to some clients about that, of saying that once you get a lot of listings, a lot of people like to list because then there's choice. And right now, there's a lot of pent-up demand because of a lack of listings, and we oversold in December. So we're obviously going to be doing that again now. We have 30% less, or not 30, but maybe 25% less listings. So 667 compared to 901, which is normal. And I keep telling buyers, just wait.
For the spring?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm telling sellers not to wait.
Yes. Sellers sell.
Yeah. But buyers, maybe wait. We'll see what happens. Prices will continue to rise is the problem into the spring. So if you find the right one, don't wait. But if you want selection, wait. That would be in a nutshell.
Right. So new listings were at 667 compared to 901, and total active listings, Andrew?
1,347 currently active versus 1,958 at the end of the month in January. So again, quite a lot lower. And I'm imagining that by the end of January, that number is going to be actually smaller than 1,347 or similar. I think we'll have more listings coming on, but we'll also see those sell. And as you said, oversold, we're selling more than we're listing. So if that continues, we're going to have less than 1,347 by end of the month. Really tight inventory. You were just giving me the anecdote of the weekend. You made requests for 22 properties to view, and only 3 were available. So that's the other one, is when you see the actual number of active listings, you can take a big fraction of that and consider that they are probably already under contract. They just haven't been marked as unconditional yet.
Yeah, so they're
much less than 1,347.
They're considered conditionally sold, and then they move to pending once the conditions are removed.
Yeah.
If we look at the list to sale ratio of 228 new listings and 215, we're firmly in a seller's market right now over the past week.
Yeah.
And surprisingly, 22 price decreases. That to me, so normally we're up around 78 or more. So that's interesting to me that there even are price decreases. But definitely, your place should be selling if it's on the market. If it's not, it's definitely overpriced.
If it's not selling, quickly, there's an issue with the property.
Exactly. Okay, so I got the question on the weekend. Hey, this house is assessed at this price. How come it's listed up here? And what we've just seen is part of the reason. But we're going to just go over our assessment information here. So Andrew has shared with me. Hold on one second.
There's just some slides that BC Assessment has shared with realtors in the past to describe their process. And, Jane, I don't know about you, but I often find that clients are saying, hey, this property is listed for X, but the assessed value is Y. It's quite a big difference. I don't want to pay more than its assessed value. Can you explain this to me? And so, we each have our own ways of going about this. But I think what people need to understand is, generally speaking, that the assessed value is not the true value of the property. They try to make a true value of the property, but the assessors are assessing 15,000 to 20,000 properties a piece. That's a lot of properties to assess. It's essentially blanket assessments. They're not looking individually really closely at each property. They're not going through the properties. They might use recent sales as an estimate, but they're not actually walking, as I said, inside those properties. So, here's just keep on this slide for a quick second. The other thing is here we are in January, and what the assessed values are based on is the market value as of July 1st of the prior year. So that's another key factor that people need to keep in mind, is they're not dealing with the assessed value based on the current market.
They're based on, and it's an average from April to October of the previous year. So it's already 6 months out of date right now.
Yeah.
So why do they do assessment? That's why people ask. And the reason why is because they want to figure out what the taxes are. They're determining what the mill rate is. So that is, they have expenses to pay, like snow removal. Let's say they're going to reinforce sewers, they're going to do bridges, all of that stuff. They have to determine how much money they need. And then they take that. So the city looks at the average values, takes what their expenses are, and then they say, this is what your taxes are.
Yeah, they just essentially look at how much they need to budget for the entire year, look at the gross inventory of the full value of all the different properties within the city that are the assessed values, that is, and then divide the two and assess each property based, if your property is worth less, you pay a little less in taxes. If your property is worth more, you pay a little more in taxes. But again, it's a blanket assessment. So it's not, although it's a way to somewhat equitably distribute the tax burden, it's not an exact science. And how many times have you heard of people challenging their taxes, property assessment, because it's out? Although, again, if you want your tax assessment to be low, your property assessment to be low, because you'll be paying less taxes, all things being equal.
Right. So when you're, I'm going to just make this smaller. When you're looking at
what do you see there, Jane?
I don't know what I'm doing there. Okay, so here's the thing: is a lot of people say, "Well, I want to, offer the assessed value." Well, as you already mentioned, the assessed value is 6 months out of date. And also, if you have, let's say, I think a condo building is a really good way to look at it. So if you have condos and one of those condos sells, it kind of determines what the rest of the condos in the building sell for. And if that condo is being well maintained, it brings the price up. But everybody gets irritated with the person who sells low because they bring the value of the condos low.
Yeah, and to be clear, the reason that happens is because BC Assessment, the assessors actually do look at the MLS data, at the sales data, They actually look at the BC, at the Land Title Office data, what are these numbers of these properties selling for? And so that they will have figures to base on to estimate the other values. And as Jane is saying, when they look at those, if they see a property that's sold low because the seller was motivated, they don't know the motivation of that seller. They just know a number that that property sold for, and they're going to blanket assess the rest of the properties around it.
And also they are once in a while, they're sending out a survey asking you if you've done any upgrades to your property, but they're also relying on permits pulled from the municipalities. And you don't need a permit to paint your house or upgrade the cabinets in the kitchen or put in tile floors, which make a huge difference in how your house presents. Yeah. So they can be totally off.
Yeah. Yeah, certainly.
So we put the information on. I was on an MLS committee one year. Maybe you were on that committee with me.
I was on it for years. I chaired it.
So we put the information on because it is part of information people need to know when they're purchasing a home. But really, it's not pertinent to purchase price.
Yeah.
Unless your house sells, and then usually it's how it shows up the next year. Correct?
And that's a key one that is, I often remind my clients, because they say, oh, look at the taxes that I'll be paying for this house because it's assessed so low. And I say, yeah, but you know, we went multiple offers and you paid X. So the assessment magically next year is going to be exactly what you paid for it. Because that's the closest, that's the information that the assessors have to draw from. And so, yes, your assessment will change and therefore your taxes.
Okay, so let's just, one more thing about assessment. Let's just talk about farm taxes. So often if you are paying farm taxes, your assessment will be, let's say you have like a $1.6 million property, your farm taxes may be at $250,000. That's because you've qualified for farm taxes by selling $2,500 dollars worth of produce or something like that.
Eggs or flowers, or the farm stand idea, or some sort of little side business. You don't have to do a lot, but you can really reduce your taxes if you own an estate property in an agricultural zoned area that allows for the farm tax status.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
One other last thing to say, again, with the property assessments, I often have people look at assessments, and we get stats that come out that say list price or sales price versus assessed value. And you see that, okay, list versus assessed value properties are selling at, let's say, 97% of, or assessed value is 90% of what properties are selling for. And so people say, well, I should only be paying, that ratio. And that's got to keep in mind and remember, and I have to remind people all the time that that's an average. It's not a rule. So there are properties selling well below assessed value, well above assessed value. If you show me a property in Oak Bay that you could buy at assessed value, you'd be getting a steal of a deal. You could look at a property in some other municipality that maybe it was over-assessed. If you pay even $50,000 under assessed value, you're still overpaying by $100,000. Assessed value is not a number that you should really put a lot of weight on when evaluating your home. That's the bottom line key takeaway. Jane, before we move on, you also had a little illustration that you said you often use. I want you to share that with our folks.
Okay, actually, I'll do it with 2 pieces of paper.
Okay.
So you have 2 identical pieces of paper. Pardon?
We have props. They're not identical. You got writing on one.
Okay, and let's say you bought these properties in 2000 and they were worth $200,000. So they were built both at the same time, same square footage, and they have double car garage, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. So they're an ideal home, and one has been well maintained, and they've redone the roof because it needs to be done by now, and they've redone the kitchen, and they've painted the exterior, and it sells first. It's going to bring this one up.
Assessed value-wise.
Assessed value-wise, because if this sells first, it's going to bring this one up. And so That's why when you're in Vancouver and you have somebody who's lived in a house for 30 years paying taxes on a $1.6 million house, even though they bought their house for $30,000 in 1965.
Right.
At the same time, if this house has not been well maintained, and this
No.
they started out the same,
Okay.
and this one has been well maintained. I did it because it has writing on it. Then this one will bring the value of the houses down because it has not been well maintained. So if
the one in the crumpled one sells first, the one that's a little bit creased and wrinkled and is not in the best of shape anymore, versus the one that's in better shape, then it sets the precedent and brings the other one lower. So one way or another, yes, the scales of justice.
Yeah, and actually I had a great example of this, of two houses in Oak Bay literally selling side by side. One was better maintained than the other. And we went to look at both and we wrote the offer on the better maintained home, even though they were both priced the same. And so that affected the price of the crappy one. It brought it up because they were just relying on pictures. So, and Andrew's stuck right now. So while he tries to get back on, if you have questions about it, you can give Andrew a call or me a call, and I'll just go present the information. So here's Andrew's information, 250-360-6106, and you can email him at info@andrewplank.com. And if you want to get in touch with me, I'm Jane Johnston with the Briar Hill Group at RE/MAX Camosun, and my number is 250-744-0775. All right, you guys, hope that was instructive and you learned a lot for today. If you have any questions, give me a call and we'll chat later. Bye. See you next week at Monday at 10 a.m.